Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Co-Angler's Corner brought to you by Olson Home Theater. I'm Russell Olson. Today on the show what I want to talk about is some things that you want to make sure you bring with you when you go out for your tournament day or go out for, your pre-fishing or you're just out having fun, for a day on the water. Start off, the obvious, your rods. Obviously, you can't do any fishing if you don't have your rods with you. That's kind of a no-brainer. I would obviously you want to make sure to also bring your tackle bag. I know it'd be preferable to have to bring as small as tackle bag as possible with you. I know that's not always possible, especially if you don't get a chance to get out and pre-fish and really narrow down what you're going to use that day. But obviously, the smaller the tackle bag, it's going to be easier for you to get around the boat. It's going to take up a lot less room. Another thing you want to make sure you have with you, you really want to bring your own life jacket. That's not something you should really depend on your boater to have for you. You really want to bring your own. Now, you don't have to have the really expensive suspenders, although I do recommend those if you can afford it. I mean, you can get away with something. I'm thinking, if I'm trying to remember how much I paid for my life jacket, I think I paid like 20 or 30 bucks for it at Walmart. You can get you can get something decent fairly cheap. I wouldn't suggest using the bright orange horse collars, as a lot of people like to call them. I mean, they're real basic. I mean, they'll do in a pinch, but they're you can do I'd spend just a little bit more money and get something a little bit nicer. So that's kind of a few of the obvious things. The next thing you want to make sure to have with you, you want to make sure you have plenty of liquids, especially on a hot day. Dehydration or heat stroke, you don't want to run into that. I usually bring with me at least a 6-pack of bottles with me at minimum, even like early spring or late fall day once when it's not that super hot. I know on a really hot day, one of the things I like to do is get a gallon of water, freeze it, and then stuff it like right up next to my tackle bag or somewhere not necessarily in the cooler, because you want the water to melt during your day. And in case you get down to the point where you need it, without water being nice and cold for you, it's more likely you still have some ice in it for you. But you really want to stay hydrated. I definitely recommend water. Some other good drinks that I like to have on the boat is Gatorade. The Propel water is really not a good drink to have on the water as well. But some really good drinking water would do the trick in that aspect. As far as food, what I like to do personally for lunch, I just get a little Lunchables packet. They're about yay big. They usually have some crackers and some sort of meat, whether it be ham, turkey, or chicken. They usually have some sort of cheese. I prefer the ones that have like cheddar cheese in them. I usually don't get any of the ones with the chicken nuggets or anything like that. To me, that just doesn't sound good especially on a hot day. And then for just if I want to have something with me to snack on outside of that, usually use some granola bars or fruit bars. Especially with me wanting to lose weight, I try to eat as healthy as I can when I'm out on the water. And some other things you can bring, like maybe some bag of mixed vegetables, like some broccoli or carrots, whatever, and something to dip them dip them in. I really don't suggest anything like cookies or potato chips, anything like that. But I do once in a while like to bring some Chex Mix type things, which I think are really good. That's some of the suggestions that I have on food. And then obviously you want to bring some gas money for your boater. You and your boater can work that out. Like some tournaments actually mandate a certain amount, like $25, $30, $35. Other than that, outside of that, talk with your partner on those arrangements. So that's some things that I would suggest to make sure that you bring with you. I would probably make sure you keep your cell phone. I wouldn't keep it on you. I'd probably keep it in a glove compartment. I know some tournaments. I don't know if there's any tournaments where they don't let you like listen to your MP3 player or whatever. I usually don't do too much of that anymore, simply because I have an iPod that has a residence in Lake Wisconsin. I fumbled a rod one time and I fell out and had my iPod Touch in my pocket, and when I got back in the boat, it wasn't in my pocket. So I lost a pretty expensive piece of equipment that day. But I definitely suggest having a cell phone with you. I'd probably get a watch, because it's not just the boater's responsibility to keep track of time. That's your responsibility as well. You want to make sure you and your boater are giving yourselves plenty of time to get back to the weigh-in. If you're in the middle of a tournament, obviously if you're pre-fishing or if you're just out fun, obviously that's not really a factor unless you've got somewhere you got to be later on that day. So those are the to me anyway the important things to bring. Obviously, I just thought of this. It's kind of a given, but you want to make sure you bring your fishing license. You don't want to get caught without a fishing license if a DNR decides to pull you over. So that's the main things that I would really suggest bringing with you on your on the boat during your tournament day or fun fishing day or whatever. And then that will lead us now into this episode's Spotlight Bait. Alright everyone, this episode's Spotlight Bait is going to be one of my actually all-time favorite baits, and actually one of the first baits I ever caught bass on when I got into bass fishing, is the spinnerbait. Got a couple of examples here. I have a single blade here that just has a single Colorado on it. Double blade with a smaller Colorado in the back, in the front, I should say, and then willow leaf in the back. As far as the type of gear that I like to use the spinnerbait on, medium heavy. Usually, for me personally, I prefer a 6 or 6.5 foot bait casting rod. Obviously, you can use spinning gear if you like. For people who are not as familiar with using a bait caster or have a lot of problems with backlash, just don't want to use a bait caster, you can use it on spinning gear. I prefer not to, but you can if you so choose. As far as the line I like with a spinnerbait, usually 17-pound fluorocarbon. With fluorocarbon, obviously you got the confidence that they can't see it, but you still got a little bit heavier line. If I'm using a lighter spinnerbait or a smaller spinnerbait, I may go down to a 15 or even a 12. Especially a 12, that's very rare. Usually if I do go down at all, it's usually to a 15-pound. But my preferred line is a 17-pound fluorocarbon line against it, because they don't clear it or don't see it, and it's a little bit heavier line. as far as colors go, I let the water between a combination of water clarity and sky conditions determine it for me. On a really, really, really bright day or really clear water or a combination of the two, I like a lot of whites. So especially like during the spring or say if you got clear water, but yet you got kind of a cloudy day or darker day. Sometimes I use white with some chartreuse in it, or a color that's kind of become pretty popular, especially with crankbaits, is a color that's called Sexy Shad. It's a white, but yeah, it's got a few streaks of chartreuse in it, and it's got some usually like grays in it. Another color I like, especially in kind of mixed conditions, kind of like I described, was a white chartreuse and blue. That's another color I've had a lot of success with. In darker conditions, say if you got murky water or you got if it's really dark out, I personally like an all chartreuse, very similar to this one right here. But again, I let water conditions dictate the colors I use. Now, I don't really fish at night very much at all, but a lot of people say if you're going to fish at night and you're going to use a spinnerbait, go all black. I could see an all black working in really extreme murky water too, simply because you've got that contrast. So I could see that working as well. But the main colors I pretty much stick with are chartreuse white, Sexy Shad. Like I said, I will mix it. Like I said, a chartreuse white and blue. I've had success on that. I usually don't deviate from that too much, and again, I let the water clarity make that decision for me. One thing I do like to do is either get a spinnerbait with the main hook being red, or I'll take those Spike It dye markers, the red one, and I'll quickly paint it red. Just like with crankbaits, anything imitating a shad, I'm a big proponent of the red hook. I just see it, especially when I think I may have mentioned this in an earlier episode. A lot of times when I got a crankbait on, and I get bites, it's that red hook that they have in their mouth, and it's kind of the same deal with a spinnerbait. Now, if I'm in the middle of a tournament, I will always have a trailer hook on. And for me, it's kind of like that back hook on a crankbait. You want them to key in on that red hook, but have that hook behind it to secure them. Sometimes fish are striking short, and if you didn't have that trailer hook on, they'd miss this front hook altogether, but you can still get them with that back trailer hook. So during a tournament, I mean, if you're just out fun fishing or pre-fishing, to me it's not a huge deal, but during a tournament, the trailer hook on every time. As far as the skirts go, I usually prefer like the silicone skirts. Very similar to the ones that Terminator uses on. I think they use them on all their spinnerbaits, and I think even on their buzzbaits too. For a spinnerbait skirt, that one-piece skirt, I'm not a fan of. I do use them sometimes, like on this bait, for example. This is one of the baits very similar to a lot of jigs where they use the skirts with a rubber band around it. I don't like this type a whole lot, simply because I found that they eventually wear out and have a tendency to slip off a lot. Like I said, I will use them. Like I said, this particular bait I use, it has it. But, a lot of times, say if they fall off, I'll replace them with what they call a living skirt. It's not a separate band. It's a one-piece then the skirts come out, and when it goes in the water, you can just see it flare out. It's really nice. As far as my blade combinations, I usually, me personally, now, and actually one thing I forgot to say, a lot of things I'm saying here, there are exceptions to everything, but a lot of times what I personally like is, say if I'm fishing on the bottom, you know, trying to, you know, get fish off the bottom, you know, not as much light penetration. I like to use a Colorado blade, you know, single Colorado blade, simply because you're going to get more disturbance in the water with a Colorado blade than you are going to be with a willow leaf blade. Size of blade, it can vary. Actually, I usually prefer just a little bit bigger Colorado blade than this in this configuration. I may upsize that blade depending on how much disturbance I really want out of the bait. Now, this type, again, like I said, if I'm fishing the bottom, or if it's really stained water, I'll use this. Like I said, I you know, without having a better way of saying it, I kind of like, I let my instincts tell me, you know, how big a blade I should use, and how deep I want to fish it, so on and so forth. Now, with a tandem blade like this, again, it kind of depends what you're doing with it. Now, in really dark water, or if I really want to buzz it through the bottom quickly, you know, on a rare occasion, I may use a double Colorado. But in a double blade, this is the type combination I like to use the most. The smaller Colorado and the willow leaf blade. Now, with the willow leaf blades, like for example, this one I haven't changed the blade on it yet. When they come out of the package, they seem like the willow leaf blade, from my experience, to me feels like it's a little bit out of proportion with the Colorado. So I like to actually downsize the willow on this combination a lot. It just seems, for me personally, it just seems to work better. Maybe a little more subtle, depending on the conditions I'm using it in. I think it burns, and when you're trying to burn it through, it burns through a little bit better. Plus, you know, it was just something I was taught. I forget where I learned it from, but to me personally, it seems to hold true. Usually, I only drop it down by maybe a size, maybe 2 at the most. I just feel like it's more proportional to the Colorado that's on the, you know, that's in front of it. As far as retrieves go, I mean, you have to experiment. There's a lot of different ways you can fish these baits, and they're very versatile. You can hop it up and down like a jig. You can, you know, slowly bring it through. A lot of people like to, you know, give it just a little twitch, and then continue, twitch, continue. You know, again, that's one of those things you have to experiment, you know, see what kind of mood the fish are in. With the tandem blade, by the way, too, in real clear conditions, no wind, you know, gin clear water, you know, basically type water you can see 10, 20 foot down. You know, sometimes I've actually gotten or used spinner baits where they had 2 willow leaves on there, because you know, you want that subtlety, but you still want to get the fish's attention with the flash. In that type of condition, I'll usually burn it. I may, you know, slow down if that's just not working, but usually with that, in that type of scenario I just described, I usually go to extremes with my presentation. I'm either really fast or really slow. Not much in the middle. But in average conditions, staying to somewhat clear water, I may steadily retrieve this near the top. Actually, sometimes I'll retrieve it just fast enough to make just a little wake at the very top of the water. And then sometimes I'll just absolutely just burn it back. Again, a lot of that is experimentation and trying to figure out what the mood of the fish are at that particular time. So that will be this week's Spotlight Bait. I hope everything we've talked about today is going to help you have a more successful and enjoyable day from the back of the boat. I'd like to mention my sponsor, Frugal Muse Books. They are currently having their 20th anniversary sale going on right now, actually through Monday the 24th, 2015. So check them out. And any time of the year, if you mention Co-Angler's Corner, you'll get a 10% discount on your purchase. And I also like to mention that here at Co-Angler's Corner, we're not just about helping people be better fishermen. We're also about helping people have better lives. If you're not making the money that you really need in life or to meet your goals, or if you don't have the freedom you need, or a combination of the two, I'd like to help you. Just do me a favor, email me at olsonhometheater@gmail.com, and I'll show you, or I'll actually send you information on what I can do to help you. Thank you very much, and keep those rods bent.